Welcome to the Pitch of Discontent. This is Owen back for a weekly Roundup episode. Yes, running solo again this week. If you were on our socials last week, you would have seen the announcement that Paige is in fact pregnant. And if you're a regular viewer, you would have watched last week's Roundup where we gave a sneak peek to that news for everyone who tunes into the show. But yes, Paige is pregnant. I'm going to be a dad. It's pretty exciting stuff. And for this week, she wasn't really feeling it. She's a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted, got a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to run this one solo again. I got some good tracks to go through for this week. So that's going to be fun. And yeah, we're just going to do that. You might see I'm slightly improving the studio setup down here piece by piece, but it's coming along well. So hopefully the visual aesthetic is to your liking. It looks pretty good on my screen, but I hope it looks good for all of you once I get through the edit. So yes. Now, before I move on, Paige did have one thing that she wanted me to mention as part of her shout outs for this week. There's a new track from Sleep Token called Caramel. We haven't featured it on the show. I believe it dropped last week, mainly because we'd already covered the new Sleep Token album, even in Arcadia. So I don't like to double up on artists and songs that we feature. So I chose not to feature Caramel. However, it has been doing numbers on the TikTok discourse, and Paige in particular wanted me to play a specific TikTok for everyone, just so that they could really get the idea of the discourse between people who have already been on board with Sleep Token for years, like Paige and myself, and then the newer fans who are coming into the Sleep Token fandom, rituals, worship, whatever the fuck you want to call it, as newcomers, which I think is cool for them. First of all, not here to gatekeep, but there is a very particular tone of worship being struck here. So I'm going to play that TikTok for everyone. I hope you enjoy it.
Wow, no.
Spectacular stuff. And that's all that Paige had to shout out for this week. So that's her little contribution to this week's Roundup. Thank you, Paige. We're going to continue on. I've got some album shout outs that I want to throw up at the top of the show. So Thornhill have dropped their third album, Bodies, out through Unified last Friday. We also had Jacob and Ethan from Thornhill on the show. I'll throw a link up for people to check out that episode. If you haven't already, go check it out. They took the interview from the golf course, which is a first for me. And I wasn't entirely sure how it would work, but the interview came out surprisingly good. And Jacob and Ethan were very forthcoming on their desires and ideas going into their third record and the things that they wanted to do to differentiate themselves from Heroin. So go give that a listen if you're interested in that. But also Bodies just fucking rocks. Super groovy, super catchy, still heavy, very Thornhill. I think it's a great record. You should check it out. We also have the debut record from Texan shoegaze outfit Glare. The record is called Sunset Funeral. If you're into old shoegaze, but you also like new shoegaze or any kind of shoegaze, you should definitely be checking this out. This is probably going to be an album of the year contender for shoegaze heads. So go check that one out. And we also have the new record from Noise Rockers, Pigs by 7. You get the idea. The album is called Death Hilarious. It has incredible album artwork. If you're into sludge, doom, noise rock, cool UK bands, you should be checking this one out. Super fun, super heavy, super catchy. Pretty much all of the words that I used to describe Thornhill just now, but it sounds completely different. So running the gamut of heavy music, if you will. Those are all the album shout-outs that I have for this week. So I'm just going to keep things chugging along nice and quick for this solo episode. Let's get into side A. Welcome back. First up for side A this week, we have Nam/Melbourne alternative emo rockers Belle Haven. They have come back with a brand new single. This one is called It's Not That Deep, and it was produced and engineered by the master of pop punk, Jack Newland, who's worked with Between You and Me, Teenage Joans, more on them in a second, Eat Your Heart Out, Stuck Out, many others. The new track follows the 2024 EP that we featured on the show from Belle Haven called Something New. We also had a chat with frontman David De La Hoy's at Good Things last year. I will throw a link up for people to check out that episode. Super fun chat with David. It was very last minute. I basically sent him a DM and I was like, hey, if you're cool to do an interview, you're here, we're here, we have time, come on the show. And he did. He's very lovely, very sweet guy. I love Belle Haven. I've been following the band for many, many years through all their various incarnations. The new stuff is super hooky, super captivating, very compelling. Lyrics are very raw and honest. If you've been following Belle Haven in their recent kind of mode, then you'll be totally on board for this one. I have some lyrics from David about the new song. He says, quote, "You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's version of you. People will pay you however they need to fit their story, but sometimes that's all it is. It's not that deep." So true, David. So true. Let's jump into the track, then we can talk about it on the other side. This is Belle Haven. It's Not That Deep. And we're back. What I love about Belle Haven is that they have this incredible knack for simple but very effective choruses. David and the other guys in the band are incredibly talented songwriters. They have been across multiple genres, but in particular, this kind of alternative emo space that they've carved out for themselves, they excel at. And David's got an incredible voice. His mid-range, his highs, everything about it is just so perfectly targeted to this kind of specific subgenre of music. We talked about this a little bit in our quick little chat for Good Things, but like his lyricism has always been incredibly raw and very real, but also quite poetic, which I think is like the perfect difference to strike for this sort of stuff. You need to be kind of confessional with this music, but you can't be too upfront. And he walks a very fine line in kind of being that very kind of like, every kind of secret is out there, but it's just like a little bit pulled back. With this song in particular, like, he's essentially talking about desire. He's talking about being down bad for someone, and then it being a completely obvious thing to everyone else. But when he's having that conversation with the object of his desire, they're like, look, it's not that deep. Like, you're into me. Maybe I'm into you. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. But it doesn't have to be this big, grand, epic thing. And I just think that's incredibly relatable. And I think it's a great song. I'm not entirely sure what Belle Haven are doing in terms of a new release. I'm not sure if they're working on a new EP, potentially a new album. I don't know. David, if you're listening to this, hit me up. Let me know. But I think it's a great track. Good way to kick off side A this week. And stoked for Belle Haven to be putting out new music. So we're going to move on to our second track for side A. Incredibly excited to talk about this one. This is a new 3-track EP that dropped as a surprise release last week. This is from Connecticut metalcore bruisers Balmora. They put out a prologue release. That's the title of it anyway. 3-track EP, came out through Days and Afira. Afira is the label run by Senti, who's the vocalist of Balmora. If you look at the album cover, it says Days Fire. So they've just like smashed the two labels together as if it's one label, which I think is kind of fun and cheeky. The band are describing this as, quote, what if the Black Dahlia murder sounded like if they had irate mosh parts? And that sounds fucking dope to me. I love listening to Unhallowed. I love the original OG Black Dahlia shit, one of the seminal kind of American melodic death metal bands. And if you take that sound, that intensity, and just put really stupid heavy mosh parts in it, it's kind of the perfect band, isn't it? Now, we featured Balmora a couple of years back when they put out their official debut EP with Thorns of Glass and Petals of Grief. And I call that one a big throwback to this kind of metallic hardcore meets metalcore of the late 90s and early 2000s. That's definitely the band's wheelhouse. That hasn't changed here on Prologue. They also had a split in 2024 with Since My Beloved. That one was called Six Packs Etched in Blood. It was one of my favorite releases of last year. And basically anything Balmora touches is going to sound sick. They had a song called Bloodlord, which was featured on the One Scene Unity compilation, which we featured on the show a little while back. Bloodlord is actually on this Prologue release. I believe it's the closer of the 3 tracks. But yeah, if you're into old metallic hardcore, early metalcore, if you're into any kind of the new metalcore bands that are popping up and blowing up at the moment, you'll fuck with this. It's great. And Balmora are currently on the Days tour with Torture, Sanction, Final Resting Place, and Ashara. So they're in good company as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to play you my favorite track off Prologue, which is the second track. So this is Balmora, The Day I Died, I Heard No Singing. Man, you know exactly what you're in for as soon as you hear that lead riff come in, followed by a couple of quick blast beats. It takes me back to 2004 very fucking quickly. I'm excited for what Balmora are working up to. Clearly calling this Prologue is kind of alluding to the fact that they probably have a debut record coming out this year. So if that's the case, I'm very excited. But also, I think that might end up being one of my albums of the year because I've been waiting for them to put together a full-length release or a more substantial release now for some time. I do think they're one of the trailblazers when it comes to this metalcore revival that's been percolating for years and years and years, and they just seem to be a group of individuals that really kind of understand metalcore from that particular point in time, and they do it so well and so authentically. So I'm excited for whatever they've got in store. I would love to see them live. I have a couple of writer friends from that part of the world that have seen them play small little club shows. I've watched a bunch of videos online from FYA Fest. There was one that I was sharing with a friend of the show, Dan Newcomb from The Brave. Shout out to Dan. Where they open their set as the first band on the first day of a 3-day festival, and they open their set with the riff from Unhallowed by the Black Dahlia Murder, and there's like 200 kids just moshing, spin kicking, beating ass, fucking each other up, and it's one of the sickest things I've ever seen. So I would love to see them live. If we can get someone to get them to Australia ASAP, that would be fucking dope. Yeah, love Balmora, love the song. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's move on to the next one for side A. So we have a new track from Aussie pop punk sensation Teenage Joans, who I mentioned briefly before. So they've come through with a massive new infectious single. This one is called Sweet and Slow. It was co-produced by fellow Aussie pop punk favorite Jaden Seeley, who was formerly with the band With Confidence. And this track is aptly described by the duo as their Disney Channel song, which is kind of cute. I have a quote here from vocalist and guitarist Carly Blakers. She says, quote, "Sweet and Slow emanates that early 2000s pop punk sound. We brought this super catchy chorus we had written to Jaden, who co-wrote the song with us. It was our first session with him, and the energy in the room was great. We all knew that writing was such a fun... I fucked that up. We all knew we were writing such a fun song. Beautiful. So this one follows the band's 2024 collab single with Between You and Me. That was 1-800-Painless, and we featured that on the pod. And then they put out their debut LP, The Rot That Grows Inside My Chest, in 2023. So they're keeping things rolling, keeping that momentum going. I would imagine they're working on an EP or a follow-up album of some kind for the rest of 2025. But in the meantime, we've got this new one, so that's cool. Let's jump into that. This is Teenage Joans, Sweet and Slow.
What do you like? Take away. Take my hair and turn it grey. Wouldn't have it any other way. Stay my hair with your number. A silence for my hunger. It's your taste that I'm craving. Itchy impatient, taking me sweeter. Dive right into the honey. Will I say that you love me? Or my heart is worth breaking. Give it up.
Whew, what a heater. Super, super catchy. Two things I love about that one. The very first line, if you're a discount sale, then I'm a shopaholic. Great. Love that. Really, really kind of works its way into your brain to kind of figure out exactly what Carly is talking about. But once you get it, you get it. And also the outro there, where you have these backup harmonies of just like sweet and slow. Beautiful. Just a really well-crafted pop-punk tune, super catchy, very much in the Teenage Joans wheelhouse. They're not doing anything super crazy that they haven't done on the album or other singles, but they're just very, very good songwriters. And I think the collaboration that they're doing with Jaden is obviously super interesting, so that's cool to see. I also appreciate a band that doesn't water down the Australian accent. I know our accent isn't for everyone, but there is a taste in your mouth that you get when you listen to an Australian band that has a very discernible American inflection to everything that they do. And that's fine. Like, you do what works for your music, but it is nice to hear a band that sounds Australian, confidently so, and can pull off writing incredible music that's catchy and captivating. And yeah, I just think that's a sick thing. So stoked for Teenage Joans. Hopefully they're working on something else. We will see. Moving on for side A, I've got two more left for you. This next one is from hardcore adjacent pop punk outfit Stateside. I've been talking about these guys for a while now. So they put out an EP through New Morality Zine in 2023 called It's What We Do. I enjoyed that. I thought that was very fun, had lots of potential. The band then signed to Pure Noise Records and dropped a 3-track single last year. That one was called Songs to Remember You By. That was also really great, showed a lot of kind of writing progression and an evolution of their sound. Well, they're finally announcing their debut album. This one is called Where You Found Me. It's out on January 6th through Pure Noise. It's going to have 2 guest appearances, one of which I will play for you in a second. And the second one is from California metalcore band Vamachara. So that's a crazy kind of feature for them. I would say that if you're into kind of any band that spans the spectrum of pop punk, so if you're into like old 2000s stuff like Saves the Day, Newfound Glory, very early Fall Out Boy in particular, which I will talk about once we play the song, or if you're into the more like current scene leaders like Story So Far, the Wonder Years, who are currently finishing up their tour here in Australia, or even like recent tour mates of Stateside, your Koyos, your Anxious, your One Step Closer. If you're into any of these bands running any spectrum of pop punk style, you will fuck with Stateside. You will enjoy what they're doing. And I would imagine that this album is going to be on your radar, whether you like it or not. I think they rock. You should think they rock also. Let's listen to the lead single from this new record. So this is Stateside. The track is called Stay Sweet, and it features Joe Taylor from Chicago pop punks Knuckle Puck.
You know you do. Can we make it through the night? Take it up.
damn, that's so good. I will be honest, when that dropped last week, I listened to the song maybe 4 or 5 times in a row, just kind of blown away at how good it was and how it takes all of the things that I loved about Stateside for a number of years and has just leveled them up so well. There's production on this record from Zach Took, who does incredible work in that kind of pop punk space. But in particular, I think like the last minute of this song, the way that it moves into the little kind of like pseudo breakdown section, there's a bit of heavy vocals, but like pulled back and restrained. There's a lot of vocal dynamics and interplay. It really reminds me of listening to Take This to Your Grave, the very first Fall Out Boy record, and the way that they were able to take kind of elements of the hardcore world that they were from and weave them into their pop punk sound and make it sound so effortless and kind of this precursor to what would become kind of the easycore thing years later with 4 Year Strong and A Day to Remember and so on. It was like a very like early precursor to that, and I feel like Stateside have captured that vibe perfectly. Like when I say hardcore adjacent, like that's definitely what they are. Like they're clearly rolling around with bands like Vamachara, but also going on tour and supporting bands like Knucklepuck and having Joe come and feature on their song. So existing in between those two worlds and taking those two sonic things and weaving them together in such a perfect way. Great single, great new release to kind of get people teased and excited for the album. I can't wait. I think it's going to be great. I have one more song for side A this week, and this one is an absolute banger. Another song that I listened to over and over and over again this week. According to my Last FM stats, this is the thing I listened to the most in the last week. So, you know, keep that in the back of your mind. This is a new song from UK post-hardcore outfit Static Dress. And this song is called Face, all lowercase, with a full stop. Not entirely sure of the reasoning behind that, but that's just what it says on the tin. The single comes with the band about to embark on their first ever US headline tour. They had previously supported Under Oath on one of their album anniversary tours alongside Loathe. The band put out their Roadrunner debut album, Rogue Carpet Disaster, in 2022. I think they put it out just before we started the podcast, so I'm not sure if we talked about it on the show. We might have talked about it as our kind of like best records of that year, but it was definitely one of my favorite records from 2022. It's still an absolute banger. I listened to it last week and I was like, yes, this rocks. I guess to say more on Static Dress, Paige and I were in the UK in 2022. I was over there to do some academic work at a conference, and we were staying in London, and Static Dress were playing at the Underworld in Camden. And we went down to go see the show, and it was fucking unreal. And I don't know whether it was because I just had a couple of drinks and I was a little bit half cut, had a bit of a buzz, which doesn't really happen that much anymore. But I was feeling the vibes. I was having a good time. That venue is such a sick venue, such an iconic space in the London kind of underground music scene. And the show that Static Dress put on was fucking flawless and impeccable. Insanely tight, but still very raw, still very loose. Just like a band in complete control of what they were doing sonically, aesthetically, had the crowd in the palm of their hand, incredible set list, all of the bangers, all the heaters. It fucking ruled. It was so good. Without hyperbole, I would say like one of the top 5 live performances I've ever seen in my life. It completely blew me away. And I was like, this band's fucking insane. Why are they not bigger and more huge? And I throw that to you now because I'm about to play you Face. It's a fucking heater. This band should be massive. And I know that they're doing a headline run in the US. That's a big deal in and of itself. But I feel like this is a band that should be talked about with the same kind of reverence as your Under Oaths, your Thursdays, your Glassjaws. You know, they are that good. And I'm not fronting here. I mean it. They are fucking incredible. Let's have a listen to the song. Maybe you disagree. I don't know. But this is Static Dress, Face.
See this love as a car crash. Hold my heart so burst on impact. Far too hard to maintain this. Far too hard to maintain this.
God, I can't get over how fucking good that is. It's crazy. That song is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. And I feel like Static Dress pack in so much into so little time without making it feel overly busy or too kind of messy. You know, there's a sense of chaos there, but it's controlled, it's harnessed, it's purposeful. And Ollie, the vocalist, has such an incredible dynamic range from his screams to his croons, his mid-range yells. Everything is kind of where it needs to be to add the sense of dynamism and momentum to the track. And you're constantly just captivated by where the track is going. The hooks aren't conventional hooks. They're not overly saccharine. They're not overly sweet, but they're still very hooky. They still get in there. The melodies are great. There's an intensity and kind of heaviness to the track, but it's not overdone. I'm kind of floored by how good they are. And I really wish or hope that other people agree, because I just think they're a fucking phenomenal band. I know Ollie is, again, kind of the conceptual and aesthetic mastermind of the band. The video is incredible. All of the visuals are great. Great sense of color and dynamic contrast. Just everything about the band is so well realized. Such a solid creative vision. Yeah, I talk a lot about new music on this show. It's kind of what we do. So every now and again, I get blown away by something that is just like so well done and so completely authentic and well realized that it kind of leaves me a little bit speechless. But luckily for you, I can still find words. I can still string together a sentence. But yeah, believe me when I say I am fucking with this heavy. I need an album, an EP, something from Static Dress this year. I'm going to fucking kill someone because I need it. I need that shit. But that brings us to the end of side A. Sad. However, I have a whole side B of tracks to go through. And you can find that on the TPD Patreon. That is patreon.com/TPDpod. There's links in the description. You can jump over there and check it out. But you get the full show, side A and side B. I've got a couple more tracks to go through. I've got a really cool feature album that snuck up on me last week. That was like 15 albums that dropped on Friday that I had to listen to. And this is the one that I was thinking about the most, about whether I should talk about it on the show. And I decided to do that. So if you would like to find out what that is and listen to that feature album and my discussion on it, jump over to the Patreon. Thank you to all of our patrons who support the show, help us keep the lights on, pay for some of these studio accoutrements, and generally kind of help level up what we do here. But anyway, if you're not on the Patreon, that's totally fine. And I will see you next week for our next weekly roundup. Thanks for watching the show. Peace. Subscribe now to the Pitch of Discontent Patreon to receive access to extended cuts of our bonus episodes, as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes content, monthly Patreon-only episodes, member-only votes, the TPD community chat, and much more. Go now to patreon.com/TPDpod and join for as little as $5 a month. That link again is patreon.com/TPDpod. Thanks for watching the show.